Today, we learn how to make this.
People look at me when I walk down the street, making me feel like a piece of meat. I get really angry and I shout out loud, why, oh, why are my feet so loud? Yes, I have loud feet and everybody knows it. Mom talks about it and my dad just shows it. It really is embarrassing, as you might guess, and that's why I'm leaving, I must confess.
Welcome back to the channel where we discuss the creative uses of AI. And before we dig in, I really want to give you a sincere thank you, because over the past few months, this channel has grown more than it has in many, many years. And it's just given me a lot of encouragement. And because of your channel support, I've been able to attract partners like today's sponsor, BetterHelp. This is a particularly special one to me because if you're a creative like I am, you probably deal with the things that creatives deal with. See if any of these sound familiar to you, like feeling like you're not good enough, feeling like nobody understands you, feeling a little bit isolated, feeling like you just don't have anybody to talk to because they wouldn't understand your situation. If you're constantly second-guessing yourself or your craft, or maybe you're not sleeping enough because you're up all night being creative, it's hard to enjoy a full quality of life. And all you really need is somebody to talk to. I'm talking about a therapist. And throughout the course of my life, I've depended on therapy to help me get out of my head about a lot of things and see things in a way that I can't possibly see it because I'm too on the inside. And it's not uncommon for people who are creative to struggle silently because they don't feel like anybody can understand them. And that is the time more than any other to consider something like therapy. I've always appreciated the benefits of therapy, but there are some aspects of it that I don't love. First of all, it's been traditionally pretty expensive. But the other part is traditionally you have to go to therapy. And it's kind of like going to a massage and then having to drive home afterward. If I've had a nice session with somebody and I've got a lot of insights, I want to just be with them for a while and let them integrate. I do not want to get back into traffic and get triggered from all directions. If you're a creative, I want you to be a creative for a really long time. And it's so easy to ignore our mental health. But BetterHelp can connect you with a licensed therapist who can listen to you in an unbiased way. And it's super easy to get started. You can just go to their site, use my link, betterhelp.com/bobdoylemedia, answer a few questions, and usually within 48 hours, they've matched you with a therapist. This whole system is designed to be easy and convenient. All of your sessions can be on your phone or your computer. You can have a phone call, you can do messaging, you can even do video conferencing, whatever works for you. So if you're just honest with yourself and you check in and you feel like you could benefit from somebody to talk to, go on over to betterhelp.com/bobdoylemedia and let BetterHelp connect you with a therapist who can support you all from the comfort of your home. It's betterhelp.com/bobdoylemedia, or choose Bob Doyle Media during sign up and enjoy a special discount your first month. I'm honored to be partnered with BetterHelp because I think this is an area that too many creative people ignore, and you should never underestimate the importance of your mental health. Okay, let's get down to the fun. Now, this is a way to take your music creations, whatever platform you use, or if you just write songs in a traditional way, in a studio with actual instruments that you've spent years learning to... We won't go there. We have the ability to do all sorts of crazy AI animations. I'm sure you've seen them all over the place. This is one of the things I'm the most excited about. And bringing these songs to life by creating AI singers like we did at the beginning was just another way to share your music in a fun and interesting way. So what did we do to create this? Well, I will admit this is sort of an advanced topic. We are going to be using ComfyUI again. And if you don't know about ComfyUI, it's basically an interface to Stable Diffusion technology, which allows you to do a lot of the AI art that you've seen out there, including animation and video. In this case, we're going to be using ComfyUI to create the character upon which that whole animation was based, and then create the animation itself. Then we take that finished animation and bring it into FaceFusion to add the lip sync with the song that we created. But it all starts with the song. So instead of doing a bunch of trial and error with any of these AI music generation platforms today, I'm going to find a piece that was created, in this case in Udio, that I really liked. It came together nicely. The sound is very clear. The vocals are crisp and understandable, and it's exactly the style I want for this particular type of video. And in this case, it's called Loud Feet Blues. It goes a little something like this.
People look at me when I walk down the street, making me feel like...
I just realized, of course you know it, because you already saw the animation, which I haven't even made yet. Isn't that weird? Okay, more time travel. So to get started with that song, I'm just simply going to download it as a WAV file. What I'm going to do next is extract the vocals from this piece. I'm just going to use this free site called Vocal Remover and Isolation. And I just drop the file onto this page and it takes a few minutes and processes it. Okay, so we've got the music track up here and the vocal track down here. Let's just pop in on the vocal because that's the one we really want.
People look at me when I walk down the street, making me feel like a piece of meat.
Perfect. I'm going to choose the wave format. I'm going to click save and I'll go ahead and get both of them, both isolated tracks. In theory, the lip sync technology that I'm going to be sharing with you later, FaceFusion, has added the ability to do this lip sync without me having to extract the vocal first. It supposedly has a music isolator built in now so that it will not interpret the sound of the music as words being said and have the mouth move all inappropriately. So we'll try it both ways just to make sure, but this way we're covered. So we're going to store those audio files away for a little bit and get to them when we are good and ready. But right now we've got some work to do in ComfyUI. So the very first thing we're going to do is to create the general look of our singer. And I'm going to use myself as a basis for the singer, even though the end result is not necessarily to have it look exactly like me. It's a good guide for this process. This is one of two ComfyUI workflows that I'm going to share with you. The first one being the one that's going to create this image, and then the other one is going to animate it. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to assume you already have a basic understanding of ComfyUI. There are many videos out there that talk about getting started with ComfyUI, and if you need to go back and get a refresher on that so that you understand how to install it and what custom nodes are and how to find those things, which may seem overwhelming at first, but it is something that you can easily learn with just a few videos. Then you can come back and this will make a bit more sense. But assuming you have that understanding and that you're able to load in these workflows and know what to do if boxes come up red, meaning that you have some missing custom nodes, you can go over here to the ComfyUI Manager, click on Install Missing Custom Nodes, and they will appear here, and you'll have the ability to install them. Again, that's kind of basic ComfyUI stuff. You should most likely know that already if you're watching this. Let me just walk you through this basic workflow. First, we're going to load in the model that we're going to use for this process, which in this case is the Realism Engine SDXL, which you can get at Civet AI, and I will leave a link in the description. We're also going to be using a special LoRa to give it a claymation look, and you can also find that at Civet AI, and I will leave a link in the description for this as well. We've got a space here for other LoRas if you want to load them, and I've got that bypassed for the time being. A simple prompt, in this case, it's going to be a distinguished claymation man in a tuxedo singing on stage, cinematic lighting, God rays, okay? And a very simple negative prompt. No text, no watermark. In this next node, we're using Instant ID to put my face on a character. This node uses two images, one a face and another one to approximate a pose. In this case, I'm using my friend Carl Smith. Shout out to Carl if you're watching. I know you're not. Just to approximate this pose. It's not like using an open pose control net here. It's actually just approximating this look, and you'll get a variety of outputs, but they'll generally be in this particular stance. You have the flexibility, of course, to add all sorts of things to this workflow if you know how. IP adapters, control net, you can put it all in here, but this is just the simplest form of this. Then we have areas where we'll see our initial output, and then this is optional, but you can run a face swap. Now this is not actually the image we're using. This is going to be a backup image if I want. This is actually set up to use this image that I drop here. So it's using both the same image to create the instant ID render and then to put a face swap on this. Now, if you'll think this through, we're trying to create a claymation effect, and if I put my photograph face on top of it, it's not going to look very good. But I wanted to show you that this is included in the workflow just in case you want to be able to see and compare both styles, both regular and claymation. Here we have a face detailer, which in theory will go back and add details to the face, which can be a little low res. This is a work in progress right now. I have this bypassed because I'm not getting the results I want. It's not passing the face ID information in here the way that I expect. When it renders, I'll get it figured out, so I'm leaving it there. You can just leave it bypassed for now. As is this Ultimate SD Upscale, takes this final image and makes it bigger and cleans it up a bit. In our case, we won't need to do that because we're using this image in what's called an IP adapter, and the quality of that image will give that IP adapter enough information to tell the animation what the guy should look like. If you're thoroughly confused, I'm really sorry. Let's cue prompt and run this workflow, see what we get. The first time you run these workflows, it'll take a little bit of time for the initial model to load in depending on how big it is, but then once you have loaded that in, assuming you use the same model moving forward, you won't have to wait for that time. Okay, so you can already see as it's building here, it's got a little bit of a claymation effect. It is definitely using my face as guidance, and it's given us a couple of different examples. I did a batch size of 2, so we have 2 to choose from if we want. Here's the face swap version, so it took the actual photograph of my face that we put in over here, and basically did a face swap. The thing you got to know about Reactor and the face swap technology here is it's not available for commercial use. So you would not want to use this face swap technology in anything that you would use commercially, which is why I like things like Instant ID and Face ID, which is another IP adapter, which gives you a pretty good face swap effect in a lot of cases, especially if you're doing something with animation. All right, so since we're not doing any more face detailing or upscaling, we can just use one of these images here as guidance for our animation workflow, because this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to save this image out, and I'll just call it reference. I didn't have it open here, but I also have an image comparer. So it takes the claymation version and its corresponding photograph or face swap version, and you can do sort of a slider compare before and after if you want to. So now let's go over to the animation UI, and this is where I was doing some tests of this process. So you'll see that here's me just sort of standing there in really nice clothing, and then here's an earlier reference image that I used, pretty much exactly like what we just did, and here is some test output. Now, those of you who have been working on ComfyUI based animation for a while know that I am way behind in using various technologies to make the background more consistent and all sorts of different things. I really wanted to show you a concept of the types of things you can do. There are much more complicated workflows than what we're going to do here. But what I need now is a video that's going to drive this whole animation, and it needs to be of a guy standing on stage singing. So what I'm going to do is just create a video right here on my phone that looks much like this one. Okay, so I'm literally going to start the video here over on my camera and take the headphones off. And I need to turn this up so I can hear. Oh. See, still dressed for the occasion. Take out peripheral background nonsense. Let's move this down a bit. Okay. So the video, so ComfyUI is only going to track my body, my face, my body. It's not going to see anything in the background. So I don't have to worry about that. In other use cases, I would want to be aware of what's going on back there, or I would just go ahead and maybe chroma key myself on the front of a background that I would like to use. All right, but for now, let's just hit play.
People look at me when I walk down the street, making me feel like a piece of meat. I get really angry and I shout out loud, why, oh, why are my feet so loud? Yes, I have loud feet and everybody knows it. Mom talks about it and my dad just shows it. It really is embarrassing, as you might guess, and that's why I'm leaving, I must confess.
Okay.
Well, I hit the town in my dancing.
All right, that's good enough for a test. So now I need to take this video off my phone, throw it on the computer. Actually, I'm going to trim out the first part that isn't me doing my thing. I'm just watching the end where I'm doing that little run. All I'm doing is I'm trimming out the first part so that I don't have any fluff in here, because it takes time to render this thing. We don't want extra frames. Send it up to my computer. When I bring it in from my phone, it's in a .mov format, and it's 1080 by 1920. So before I bring it into ComfyUI, I convert it to an MP4 file with half the resolution. Then I load that video in here. I had this set to skip the first several frames, which you often do when you're testing. But if I was to take this all the way down to 0, you'd see it's right there at the beginning, hopefully where the music is starting. This value here is the maximum number of frames it's going to capture. Again, for a test, you just want to do a few frames and see what it looks like. So in this case, I'll just leave it at frame 0. And let me show you the rest of this workflow without getting too into the weeds about the details. This section here is where you load in your video that's going to drive the whole thing, and you set your initial size and dimensions. If you're going to upscale the video later, you can give those dimensions here, how you want it to upscale. I'm not going to run the upscale in this particular demo because it just takes a long time, and I'll be able to do what I need to without upscaling it. Below all this, we have the prompt, and it's basically the same prompt as we used before to create the guy. Art style is what triggers the claymation effect when you run it. Man in a black tuxedo, black pants, singing on a Las Vegas stage with flashy neon lights, dazzling and dynamic. So I added a little bit more in there. honestly just to compensate for the idea that I know it's going to be flashing in the background anyway because I'm not doing some of the more advanced stuff. So I figure, let's work with it. I have a couple of LoRa's down here, one to apply the clay style and the other to make this process a little bit faster. And I could probably be playing with the Hyper SD LoRa's and get this done even faster. Right now I'm using an LCM LoRa, which again just helps make things a little faster. Here is the IP adapter, which I was telling you about. Here's a clay rendering of me that's going to guide what this looks like. I'll show you, as you will see when we start this. ControlNet basically gives you more control over the final animation, and what we're using here is a ControlNet called OpenPose, which, as I mentioned before, tracks my body, it tracks my face, it tracks my fingers and my feet, but not anything in the background or anything like that. So all this is looking at is how I move around, and that's going to guide the animation of our clay guy. And then this is our animate diff section where we choose the model that we want to use to bring motion to this thing. All these settings you can just leave at their defaults if you want to run this. And this is where you'll get the output. So this was just, again, a little test. Why don't we run another test real quick? We'll do a test of maybe 29 frames and we'll just start it here from the beginning. Select every nth, by the way, will allow you to skip frames. It would basically process every other frame of this animation, and then you could use a process called interpolation to basically add that time back in and smooth out those images. I like doing it this way with every frame, and especially with the claymation effect that we're looking at, it might actually add to the effect we're going for. So let's just run a quick test. So the first thing it does is it pulls out some of the sample images here. Then that's all going to go down here to our control net, and that's where it finds all the skeletal positions. As you can see, even my face, my fingers, it's tracking everything. And now we're going to start to render out the images. And I think we did like 29 images or so. So you only see sort of one image come together in this window, but it's actually processing a lot of images in the background as well. Then they put them all together in this combine node, and then we see a video. Okay. So there he is. Again, pretty flashy. I don't know if I want to mess with it too much in terms of changing the strength of the clay effect, because what I'm really wanting is clear eyes and mouth. As such, I might actually look at running the upscale on this after I run it, although in FaceFusion there is the face enhancement, so maybe I'll just go with it. So let's just run another test a little bit further into the video and see what we get. It's going to extract new frames, create a new control net set of images, and now it's over here doing its thing. It looks like flowers and stuff back there. I'm gonna take a risk and activate this upscale node. I'm just selecting all the nodes and clicking Control B to turn everything on. For the upscale itself, there's a process for choosing which upscale model you want. Now again, you can download and choose many of them. That's beyond the scope of this particular tutorial, but you can download models again from the manager. You can go to Models, Install Models, and just do a search for the type of model you want, upscale, whatever you'd like, and then you can install it from that interface right there. So it's basically running a similar process. It's running things through Animate Diff again and creating a brand new animation based on the first one, of course. Now, to do the whole thing, which will take a while, I'm going to bring all this down to 0, so it starts at the first frame, and there is no cap to it. It's going to run the whole entire animation. So it's going to be extracting all the frames and doing all of this. So it's going to take a little bit of time, so we will come back after it's done. Okay, we've got our finished first pass of the animation, and as it turns out, I had some sort of an error when it tried to upscale. I'm not sure what it was, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just go with this animation anyway and see if it works with the face swap. It's not the best animation, not the most consistent. I've got stuff appearing in my hand for no apparent reason. And of course, the background is ridiculously chaotic. But let's just see if we can get this thing singing. So to do that, I'm actually going to stop my instance of ComfyUI, which I'm running in the Pinocchio interface, which I talk about here all the time. I'm going to click the Home and go over to FaceFusion 2.6 and launch that. I've installed both FaceFusion and ComfyUI with the Pinocchio interface. It just makes it so easy. So I highly recommend it. This is FaceFusion. Primarily, it's a face swapper, but we're not going to be doing any face swapping unless we feel like we need to get a better result. But for right now, I'm just going to turn the face swapper off and click Lip Syncer because that's what we're here to do. And because I have an NVIDIA graphics card, I'm going to click on CUDA and bring up the execution thread count. And then I'm going to bring in the Loud Feet Blues audio file, and this is the one with the vocals and the instrumental on it.
Feet so loud.
Because we're going to test this feature of FaceFusion, which allegedly is there, that will go ahead and do the vocal separation anyway, because the lip sync is acting on the audio that it's hearing, and if it hears all the music too, then the mouth is going to just constantly be moving. So we need to get the vocals out of there. So if this does not work, that's why we have just the vocal stem just in case. So now we're going to drag the video that we created in here, and that's our target. And what we hope is as we go through the video that we see and preview the frames that we see some sort of movement going on the lips that would suggest that some sort of lip sync is happening. It looks like it is. Now you may have wondered when I was recording why I wasn't lip syncing along with the song. That can actually mess this up. It's a little bit better for you not to be moving your mouth at all, or just kind of moving it a little bit. So it's not trying to track lips. We can have this run just for 56 frames, for example. Actually, let's move it in to where there's definitely singing, and then we'll trim it at like 140 or something like that. We also want to add the face enhancement because that will make the lip sync look a bit better after the fact. So let's go ahead and click start and see what we get. All right, that's a quick test, 1 second test. No, that's something didn't happen right. I wanted to trim the frame start to 98. That seemed to have been start at 304 and go to 390. That should definitely be inside the song. As I'm looking at this, it looks like the face enhancement did a little face enhancement to these eyes anyway. It's not working as expected because the audio isn't moving in. The video part is moving into frame 257, but the audio is not, so it's not really a good test, is it? I know what I did. I never clicked the reference face. When you load in your video, a reference face appears down here, so you can choose which face or faces you want something done, whether it's a switch or whether it's lip sync. So now that I have selected this face properly, I'm going to click start again. I don't expect the results I want, and I now know why. It doesn't detect the face all the way through because it's just too cartoony. I'm going to save this one because this seems okay, but that preview looked much better because I did make some changes down here to face detector score, although I would have thought it would have made it worse. I'm going to go ahead and click start again. After this, I think I'm actually going to run it one more time with the audio of the instruments, with the vocals, and see what we get with these settings. All right, let's see what this looks like first.
People look at me when I walk down the street, making me feel like a piece of meat. I get really angry and I shout out loud, why, oh, why are my feet so loud?
I think it's locking onto the faces in certain point and not in others, and that's when the lip sync gets a little janky. When you first saw this at the beginning of this video, you may not have even noticed all of this detail, and it may have looked just fine. You weren't over analyzing it, so keep that in mind too, please. Now we're gonna replace the audio source one last time with the original. We're going to run this again. Ideally, we'll get the exact same results as we did before, except that the music track will be there, and I won't have to do any extra editing. The audio track will be complete with the video, with the lip sync, such as it is. Also, if I had gone ahead and done an upscale and fixed whatever problem that was, and had a higher resolution video going in here, that might also have helped the algorithm find the face, lock in, and do a better lip sync. All right, here we go. Well, his mouth isn't moving.
People look at me when I walk down the street, making me feel like a piece of meat. I get really angry and I shout out loud, why, oh, why are my feet so loud?
That's it. I'm going with that one. That's the one you saw at the beginning of the video. Just as one more fun experiment, I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to do a face swap in here as well. So I'm going to turn off face enhance. I want face swap, lip syncer, and face enhancer. So to do the face swap, I'm going to choose my picture and the audio file, drag it over, both of them, just make sure it's the right audio file. Now you'll see that my face now has been switched in there. Now sometimes to activate the enhancer better, you turn that off and on again. And now let me go ahead and we'll also see if that makes a difference. Let's see what happens. Start. If this works better, the video at the beginning will be these two videos side by side. So you'll already know. Well, I can already tell that it didn't catch my face swap on the first frame, so let's see what we got. Okay, well, frame 1 looks good. Let's see.
People look at me when I walk down the street, making me feel like a piece of meat. I get really angry and I shout out loud, Why, oh, why are my feet so loud? Yes, I have loud feet and everybody knows it. Mom talks about it and my dad just shows it. It really is embarrassing, as you might guess, and that's why I'm leaving, I must confess.
Yeah, it totally loses my face at the end there and pops in and out. A very strange effect, but the concept is there. You can create your own avatar singer. I was going for this cartoony look. If you used a real look, then that wouldn't be a problem. But I just really wanted to experiment with the claymation style, which we seem to have sort of lost along the way, but that's the way of things sometimes. Clearly, if I decided to spend hours on getting this right and tweaking every little aspect of it, I could probably get what I was going for. But most of these videos, I'm teaching you a concept that you can apply in your own scenario with your own files and your own use cases. So it may have seemed a little complicated, but actually the concepts all throughout this thing are fairly simple. So you may have to watch it a couple of times to pick up on a thing or two. And of course, educating yourself on ComfyUI and FaceFusion would certainly help the situation as well. But if these are the types of things you like to learn about, even if you can't necessarily dig right into them, then why not consider subscribing to the channel, because we talk about all this kind of creative AI stuff all the time.
If you subscribe now, I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you do not, I will look for you. I will find you. And I